Hello everyone, my name is Narissa Anderson, and the Sibert Medal Award book that I decided to read was Drowned City, Hurricane Katrina in New Orleans by Don Brown. He also made the illustrations. If you look closely at the illustrations, they look to be hand-drawn. I will show you a little more pictures once I go in further to the book. This book was copyrighted in 2015, and the publisher is the Houghton Mifflin Harcourt. As I mentioned before, a lot of my books that I've chosen were published by this publisher. They seem to be a very popular publisher. The genre of this book is informational books, and the ages is 12 plus. A little bit about this book. This book talks about the disastrous hurricane that came to New Orleans in August 2005. This book talks about a lot when they heard the news, when people tried to escape. In the book, it starts off with showing the winds of how it started, as you can see in this picture right here. Also, it goes into detail about how people packed up. As you can see, people packing up. And down here, if you can see, they're showing the traffic and how everybody wanted to escape. There was many people that couldn't leave. As you can see, there's a illustration right here up at the top of people standing on the street. Some people couldn't leave because they were either poor or they didn't have any transportation. Some people just felt so comfortable to stay home and didn't believe the severity of the hurricane. Down here shows trains that departed early once they heard the hurricane was coming. So some people that didn't have transportation still couldn't get to a safe place due to the fact that there were not even any trains or buses or anything in the area to take them away to shelter. Here shows the hurricane getting really bigger. The hurricane getting ready to destroy the city. Here shows the hurricane already destroying houses. It also talks about police officers and firefighters and many different people who are there to help, left their posts and also escaped. The book goes into detail talking about how many people drowned and lost their lives in their houses after the houses got destroyed and turned over by water. A lot of people drowned. There were people stuck on their rooftops. Here's an illustration of a mother, seems to be holding her child, and they're stuck on the roof. The book talked about how many people went to the Superdome for shelter, which is illustrated right here. As you can see, after a while, the Superdome got tore down too. There was a hole that was made in from the hurricane, and as you can see, there's water pouring down. So people eventually had to leave there as well. The next option for people was the convention center, which comes up pretty soon in the book. It also talks about people taking advantage and robbing different stores and for food and even things that were unnecessary, TVs and pretty much everything else they can think of. Right here shows a picture of the convention center, which was the next step that people went to for shelter. After a while, the convention center was so packed that they didn't want to let any other people in. And I will show you an illustration of that picture, which is right here. Here's the convention center, and it shows military people guarding the door due to the fact that the convention center was just so overrun. It was crowded. There was not enough food for everybody. And so thousands of people were stuck outside of the convention center. It talks about how, being that there were so many people stuck and nowhere to go, they were urinating on themselves and having bowel movements, and it was just really bad. It was a really bad situation for them. Eventually, helicopters started to come, and some of them started to save people that were stuck in the water. It shows 5 days later, these people were stuck for 5 days with no food and no water. A lot of people died from starvation, and just some of them drowned, like I mentioned earlier. Eventually, they sent buses to come save them. Once everything died down, maybe 5 days later, it got a little better for them to come rescue them. It even talked about people trying to escape over a bridge, and um, police police type people blocking them from leaving. The book ends, like I said, talking about how they came finally to get them 5 days later after everything happened to start saving everybody and taking them to shelter. Here's a picture of a line of people in buses waiting in the line for them to collect them. Now, I think this book is good for children because it gives them, an outlook of how the people of New Orleans went through hardships, and it teaches them about sudden life crises and what they can do to prepare for them. Also allows them to see how life can change suddenly, and it teaches them coping skills to be able to deal with stuff like this. I think it also teaches them, most importantly, to be appreciative of what they have. And I think an experience with this book is my own family member. She was my cousin who lived in New Orleans. She was able to get out. She only came with a small suitcase, so she had to leave everything behind. She ended up staying with us for 2 years and then moving back to New Orleans after they reconstructed the city. It took them a while. An activity I would have for the students to complete is to create an evacuation plan. Now I'll have them to do this to be prepared for something like this. I would have them include a destination. Where would they go if something like this was ever to come up? I would have them to put how much money would they need? How much money are they saving for emergencies like this? Also, what would they take with them? I think this will help students be more aware and prepared for something like Hurricane Katrina. It will also prepare them for life crises. That's pretty much all about this book. Like I said, it's a very detailed book about Hurricane Katrina and how everything went down. The illustrations are very dull in the book, clearly because a hurricane, it brings darkness, and it makes everything look smuggy and dull. So the illustrations in the book, as you saw, didn't have much color to it. Majority of the illustrations were very dark, and they seem to be hand drawn, like I said in the beginning. So that's basically it about this book. Thank you so much for sitting and discussing this book with me. Again, my name is Narissa Sykes, and this is Drown City.